My name is Elizabeth Mottershaw. I joined Garden Court North Chambers in 2015 as a pupil, and then I completed pupillage and became a full member in 2016. A large part of my practice is housing related, and that breaks down into possession proceedings, into cases brought against landlords for unlawful eviction, disrepair work, and homelessness appeals.
My name's Ros. I've been with GCN since I started pupillage here at the start of 2021. And I work in a few different areas, but in housing, I do mainly possession work, disrepair work, and claims involving antisocial behaviour injunctions. What I really like about housing is the crossover with other areas. I'm lucky that I get to do some social security work at Garden Court North. I'm able to get involved in welfare benefits work, and there's quite often in possession cases in particular a welfare benefits angle to possession cases. So being able to bring that in and work across two different areas is something I find really interesting. Similarly with housing and antisocial behaviour, half of my practice is crime, half my practice is criminal. So having that kind of experience, being able to bring that into a housing practice is a real asset. I've had solicitors tell me that they find real value in having a barrister with a crime practice working on housing injunction cases. So again, it's just I think housing is a fantastic area with lots of crossover of other areas, which if you're in a chambers with a multidisciplinary practice can make for a really interesting day-to-day practice.
I enjoy housing work because it has a great combination of technical law, which is set out in statute, but then expanding into areas of public law arguments. It allows for arguments about the Equality Act, about discrimination, and Article 8 of the European Convention. It combines that sort of technical legal stuff with very hard stories to hear. The clients are individuals who are very often they either already are homeless or they're facing homelessness. They have faced many difficulties like disability, mental health problems, addiction in some cases, domestic violence. We have cases of hoarding. It's a very rich tapestry of clients and stories and work, which as lawyers, we have the challenge to fit into the legal background to all that. And it's an area that's very, gives you a sense of assisting people when they're really facing a horrible time in their life or of not having a roof over their head. I came to Garden Court North Chambers as someone who'd had a previous career in international human rights, and I had increasingly become interested in human rights here in the UK. I also, my previous career was based in London. I'd also come to the conclusion I didn't want to be in London anymore. So when I decided to come to the bar, really, Garden Court North Chambers was the only chambers that I really thought was suited to my areas of interest. Now, in housing, what Garden Court North Chambers has provided is a real opportunity to mix housing with other areas of practice. Um, Court of protection is a good example, which is another area of my practice, immigration work, and we have practitioners here who do family work. And there's a real sort of interest in uh, intersection between these areas, which I don't see as much in other chambers. The other thing about Garden Court North and the housing team here is that we have a huge variety of practitioners, from those who've been involved in housing law for a long time, for 20 years, those who've taken cases to the European Court of Human Rights, me in the middle, and we have juniors who are starting new practices in housing. And within that team, there is a real atmosphere of sharing expertise and knowledge, we are asking each other questions on a daily basis, and that both the questions and the answers come from all different members of the team. And I think that really helps us all as individuals build our practices, and as a chambers build a real strength as a housing team.
In the years up to applying for pupillage, I was keeping an eye on interesting housing cases and interesting social welfare cases, and I just noticed Garden Court North barristers were just cropping up again and again and again in every judgment that I found really interesting. And it was coincidence for me that I was also living in Manchester at the time, and that also happened to be the nearest chambers that interested me as well. So that was the first thing that stood out to me about GCN. Um, Now that I'm here, I really, really appreciate the relationships we've got with solicitors. Obviously, we're really committed to publicly funded practice, and that's you know, that's in our blood. That's what we stand for. And solicitors that share that ethos have a really strong bond, I would say, with chambers like ours. So it's the relationships with local solicitors, and not even local, national. We travel is really valuable at GCN. GCN as a chambers generally is just a really supportive environment. You've always got someone on the other end of the phone. Obviously, we're all in the team because of a shared commitment to publicly funded work, because of a shared commitment to representing tenants and the interests of individuals, and taking on local authorities or large private bodies. So you've got that kind of community spirit. I think it's a really supportive collegiate atmosphere to work in. And in a team of our size, everyone's building their own specialisms and training each other up in different areas. That's, a housing practice. My housing practice is completely different to another person's housing practice, and that's something I find really, really fascinating, and makes for a good team as well, in that you can pick each other's brains.
What I've really seen at Garden Court North Chambers since I joined in 2015, and since I've been working in housing law, is a real expansion. The Chambers has got a reputation for the work that we do, and it's attracting instructions from solicitors across the north, the northeast, the northwest, and down into the Midlands, who are very committed. They share our ethos as well. They're very committed solicitors. They're wanting to uh, make creative arguments to really support their clients in the same way that we at Garden Court North want to. That's a real attraction for me, continues to be an opportunity to grow my practice and for Chambers to grow its overall practice in housing.